Live.
And go.
Okay, so what I'm seeing so far is, hold on, is that my mic is off on here. Oh, no. But, okay, so we're live on Twitter. We're also live on Spaces Twitter.
Okay. Facebook and YouTube. I just got messages. So I think we're starting to get the hang of this.
Are we?
We got all these platforms happening. Now what?
Now we talk. So yeah, with the Healy this week, I've been having, well, from the last podcast, I've been having issues with all kinds of things, teeth, freaking my knee thing. I've been running this Healy hard. I've been probably like 10 programs a day.
Holy crap. That's
Between 5 and 10 for sure.
okay, that may be excessive, but who knows?
Like, so I started running like the bacteria one for my infection in my tooth, and then
Yeah.
the teeth one, and then circulation, and then I got this knee thing going on. So it was like joints and freaking anything I could think of that correlated to any of my ailments. I do feel like it kind of like gave me a little bit of an edge on everything. Like,
Yep.
it was still, my body was still like fighting these things off. But I think it just gave it like a little bit of a boost. Plus, I was like, trying to do like detox smoothies and all this other stuff. It was just a lot. I just threw the kitchen sink at it. And long story short, still got the infection in my tooth. It needs to be taken care of. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. And sorry.
Jesus, that's loud.
Jesus. Wife is calling me. She's trying to get on here. I don't know if this is going to interrupt the whole thing. Probably.
If you get on the phone, I'm sure it will.
Well, it could interrupt the say hi, David.
Hey, Aaliyah.
Hi.
Hey.
Anyways, we're doing a podcast, but it rang so loud, I figured I would say hi.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll let you guys. What are you guys talking about?
We just started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go. Love
Okay.
you.
Love you. Bye. So look, that didn't even interrupt the Spaces podcast thing. So
That's cool.
What's going on? Anyways, so yeah,
still going on my end too.
I'm feeling pretty good. Here's a story though. So I hadn't been. You know how I used to do the sauna all the time? I don't know if you even knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The infrared one.
Yeah. So I had been doing it on the regular for a while. Then probably over the course of the past 6 to 8 months, I've really fallen behind. Haven't been doing it. So the sauna finally reopened at the gym, and I found a great time to go where it's not like freaking packed in there. And I was like, the other day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back in the sauna. So the first time I went 10 minutes, and then that got me pretty good, right? After I got out of there, I was feeling what you're supposed to be feeling. You're kind of not feeling good, borderline like nauseous,
Yeah.
and you recover within like 10, 15 minutes and you feel amazing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had pushed myself to 10 minutes, but normally I'm doing like 20 minutes up in there. This one is not an infrared either. This one is a regular stone one, and
oh yeah,
it was like almost 200 degrees.
Hot. Yeah, that's totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I was used to the infrared, right? So the next day I'm like, okay, I know that I can do 20 minutes. So I just did 10. I felt pretty good after. Let's try for 15. I'm in there. I'm literally like fucking dying. I'm like, oh, fuck. It's been 10 minutes and I got 5 more minutes, right? I'm like, get through this, you fucking bitch. You can fucking do it. It's 5 more fucking. I'm like basically just talking to myself for 5 minutes, like talking myself through it, dripping sweat. some dude walked in, and he sat there for a while. And then it becomes like this battle too, where if somebody comes in, you want to make sure that you stay longer than them, and
Oh
then
my God.
I don't know. This is my own head, I guess. So the people coming in for like 5 minutes, I'm like, fucking pussy, right? Like, see, I can stick it out longer than them. So I go the 15 minutes. I'm like, all right, I gotta get out of here. So get out, and I'm feeling what I normally feel, but then it kind of accelerates a little bit after, and I sit down. I was getting lightheaded. I was nauseous, and I was there for a while, and I was like, oh my God, this is not good. So I'm like, I gotta go get some water in me. So I went, but then the plan was I was gonna go get water, and then I was gonna go to one of the stalls because I thought I was gonna throw up, right? So I go over to get water, drink water, and that's the last thing I remember until this guy comes over and he says, "Are you okay?" And I realize I'm on the floor.
You passed out.
Yeah. So the guy is super nice. It's the same dude that was in there. I must not have been out for too long because it was like, because there was a decent amount of people there, and he was the only one that saw me. So got up, he gave me his bottle of water. Super nice dude, and I laid down. But hours later, so I recovered. It took me like another half hour still to recover after that. Hours later, though, I'm kind of, I still had that knee thing, so I had water on my knee. So
Right.
I was, checking in on that as I do a couple times a day to make sure everything's okay. I go down and I feel, I'm like, oh, it's gone, right?
Holy
Because when I fell, I must have fell on my knee, and it just ruptured the the fucking thing.
What the hell?
Yeah. So so that's all up in there. That's all not visible anymore. It's just dispersed now throughout my leg. I haven't died, and my leg doesn't feel like it needs to be amputated or anything. So I guess everything's okay.
Maybe it just like popped and it's just gonna absorb into your body.
Basically, I think that's what happened. I mean, my knee, around my knee, is still, it's sore to the touch, and it's also a little bit bigger than the other knee. But it's way better than it was before when I had the bubble on.
So who won the competition now?
Of the sauna competition, I won that shit. Nobody was in that motherfucker when I got out.
Yeah, but that guy
Yeah, but
was
then
still able to help you.
I guess he won. He really won. So yeah, be careful of those saunas, guys. It's don't push yourself too hard.
Yeah, I mean, in the venture to find alternative holistic things, there's always, you're exploring and you're experimenting, right? Trying things, and sometimes,
Yeah, push a little.
maybe you don't need to be in that long.
Yeah,
So maybe the 10-minute mark is probably the good mark because
10 minutes good for now. 10
yeah,
minutes is like really good, especially in that kind of sauna too. I think I can't do 20 minutes in that kind of sauna.
right.
I mean,
I
maybe
mean, you do have to drink a lot of water, and
that was the other thing too. I think I was underhydrated. There's a lot of things, and I had just finished working out too. It's like,
yeah.
but yeah, be careful, guys. Be careful.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about something that's been coming up a lot with just people around and just hearing conversations, and also stuff that's been coming up for me with the Healy.
Uh-huh.
And that is spirit.
I read this. There's a spiritual one as well.
Yeah.
See that one?
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between the two?
I don't.
Okay. Well, explain
But
spirit. Do you know spirit?
I don't know if I fully know spirit, but what I'm saying is I think there's a buzz phrase going around, mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spirit. And I feel like I constantly work on my mind because I read a lot and I researching and I engage my mind in a lot of different things. And my body, like I'm constantly either working out or riding my bike or doing something physical to stay healthy. All these things I love to do because I feel like it helps me grow as a person.
Mm.
But then the spirit part, I feel like that's not something that a lot of people talk about or really, as far as I know what to do to kind of exercise that aspect of your being. So I've been really thinking a lot about that. And with the conversations I've had with people, I do have exercises that I do for that, but I guess I didn't really think of it in those terms.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure you do.
Well, yeah. I mean, yoga tends to be, I think, a mind, body, spirit thing altogether because you're physically doing something. You have to use your mind to focus on one thing and stay focused. So that's like the mind, the body connection. And then the spirit, for me, with yoga came later. It was like
Kicks
it
in when
became a spiritual practice
yeah,
later in the
kicks
game
in
for me.
when you're like when you're doing the mind thing, focusing, you're in a position, and then you're holding, and then that's when I think like spirit kind of kicks in, right? Where it's you can kind of go out of your body and you're just holding this position.
Yeah, or even the spaces in between.
Mm.
It's almost like the space in between the breath, the space in between the movement, the space in between is when you realize that you're more than just your body and more than just your mind. And I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations with people, and they've been talking to me about uh, their spiritual journey after COVID. And it's been an interesting, like, I'm not provoking the conversation at all. It just ends up going there. But like my cousin yesterday, somebody at the kombucha bar the other day, one person at work,
Like
just,
after they got COVID and recovered from it,
no, more like
or just the whole
the
pandemic.
experience of COVID has been this, 2-year pandemic, and
Mm.
it's still ongoing in some places very heavily. And I think we talked about like a pattern interrupt before, where it's like everybody's working 9 to 5, doing their thing or whatever it is that you do. You're doing it, you're in it, and then COVID hit. We were all quarantined. We all kind of had to live life differently for a little bit. Some people use that time to reflect and think about other things. I know I had a lot of deep conversations during COVID because we had the time to do it. And then now it's like everyone's going back to work and doing everything again, and it's almost like there's something missing.
Right.
And the common theme, the common thread for me was that it was like spirit, like we're mind, body, spirit. And I almost think the time that people had during COVID and quarantining was to do fulfilling things for yourself, things that filled up your soul, your spirit, your energy. And now people are missing that and wanting to go back and almost feeling like they don't know how to do that. And I feel very similar. Like I do have things that I do, but it's almost like an afterthought. It's after I've gone to the gym and after I've made sure that I've kept up on whatever I'm reading, or and after I've gone to work. Then if there's time, I'll do something spiritual. It's almost like I push away the thing that I need the most, maybe. And
Yeah.
maybe there's other people out there that are doing the same.
Yeah.
And so I feel like one of the things that I've done that's always helped, and it sounds super cheesy, but a gratitude journal.
Mm.
And to me, that practice was and is life changing every time I do it. Like if I commit to doing it every day for a month, I see differences in my life and notice differences in my mentality and my energy level and my mindset.
Yeah.
And that's just every day I wake up, the first thing I do is write 10 things I'm grateful for. but not do it as an exercise, as I'm going to write 10 things I'm grateful for. Set out to do the exercise, but the exercise is more about how I feel, not what I've written down. Like, I can say things all day long, but if I say and I feel at the same time, that to me is the exercise. So like some days it's like I'm grateful for just being alive. Some days I'm just grateful for having fresh water to drink and grateful for the trees and the air that I can breathe. And then some days it's more specific, like being able to drive to work in a car, or being able to afford to pay for gas, being able to uh, just the things that I'm grateful for in that moment. They have to be authentic, they have to be real, and they have to be felt in that moment. And by the time I get to the 10th one on the list, I feel really great. Like, it's like, okay, there's no reason for me to feel sad or overwhelmed or anxiety or depressed, because there's all these things I'm grateful for. And then as the practice progresses over a month, you start to realize and be grateful for a lot of things around you. Because I think, when you get in a monotonous lifestyle, the the things that you have and the things that you do and the people around you become uh, things that you just take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if all of that was taken away from you and you didn't have that? Would you look at it differently? Would you say hi to that person that is making your coffee in the morning in a different way if you knew it was the last time you'd see them or something? It's like, it sounds dramatic, but at the same time, it puts you in a mind frame, I feel like, that does feed your spirit. For some people, it's like church, that may do it for them. But that's one of the biggest practices that I go to doing, and I haven't done it in a few months, and I feel like I'm ready to dive back in and do that again.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, everybody's heard of that before, doing that, but the way that you're talking about it is kind of more. It's like the next level. It's not just like writing it down. Obviously, even writing it down is probably a good first step. Like,
totally.
you can obviously go beyond it, like what you're doing too, which kind of probably mm, makes it better, makes your thought patterns better, and you actually do feel grateful for those people and those things, right? I was just actually just listening to this podcast with Tony Robbins' wife, Sage.
No, I like that name though.
Yeah, so she's like super like spiritual. So and she was talking to this other woman who wasn't so spiritual, and she was talking about meditation and stuff like that, and she was saying the same thing as you. Being grateful is the number one thing, because obviously if you're not grateful for your life, the breath that you're taking, like you can really like break it down to like simple things, like you should be grateful that you're able to breathe, because some people aren't, right? um, but she kind of really broke that whole thing down, and went to town on it with different ways. She was even saying like the moments, like you were saying in yoga, the moments in between. She was saying the moments where you're just say driving or whatever, and you have a moment where you maybe catch yourself, like maybe you're about to get pissed, but then you don't, because you realize maybe that person was going through something, they cut you off and whatever. That in itself is like a moment of spiritualism almost, where you're kind of just holding back and realizing that you don't have to be like that, you know.
Yeah, there's a term in yoga called the observer.
Mm,
And a lot of times when like you were saying, you have had some out of body moments where you're like in a pose and you're holding it and you're kind of feeling out of body. It's that moment that you realize that you're also the person, but you're also the observer,
mm,
the person that's observing you, the thoughts that are observing you while you're doing what you're doing.
mm.
And or they call it the witnessing yourself.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, so with quantum physics, there's that thing where if you absorb, do you know what I'm talking about? If you
The
absorb
observer
it
effect.
happen or whatever, or right, and that's kind of how life is almost too. If you're actually just being grateful, and that's part of who you are and what you do all the time, then you're not actually observing anymore. You're just being that, right? And then that's when all the magic happens. Hmm. But
Okay, we're done. Thank you for your time.
do you know? But I'm not. I haven't looked into this in a while, but I know that there is this observer theory or whatever. But can you talk about that at all in any kind of detail? Because I don't really remember exactly what it was based on.
Well, it's another borderline woo-woo concept.
Yeah, don't worry about
I've talked to a physicist before about the observer effect, and he says it's way more complicated than that, which I agree. I think oversimplifying things that are very complex is also not a good thing. But the observer effect is with the idea that different scientists looking in the microscope at atoms and the charges of their electrons can be positive or negative depending on who's looking at the microscope. Meaning that the person that's actually looking at the very fabric of reality, which is atoms and molecules, changes depending on who's looking at it. That's the oversimplified version, and
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people take it, that to say that, my perspective and your perspective are different, and if I look at something, I could have a different effect on that than you could looking at it, and then take that into, way more deep philosophical conversation. But I've had this conversation with a real physicist, and he said it's way more complex than that. And we had been drinking, and it was like not the time or place for him to go deep into the scientific
Mm,
aspect of that. But I do think, from my experience, we all do have a unique perspective on life, and it is that unique perspective that can affect or influence our immediate surrounding.
mm,
And I always go back to the idea that we all have, like, we all can agree, I think every human being can agree at the very basic level, that we all have a vibe that we give off when we walk into a room. And whether it's accurate or not, there's an immediate reaction from every person when someone else new walks in the room and they feel that person walking in the room.
mm,
So we all have an effect, a perspective, individual reality, an inherent energy. Like, there's so many different words we could use in this place: an aura, a bioenergetic field, an energy field that's around us that people pick up on. And whether or not, our instincts are right about that initial feeling about that person, it could be just the moment in time, how they're feeling and what they're giving off, and that it could change.
mm,
Um, but I think that goes with the observer effect in a way that we all can agree that we give off some kind of energy, and that may or may not have an effect on the reality that is in the immediate vicinity.
mm.
So whether that means that you're, making bunnies appear out of hats, or if you're just able to maybe influence the person's emotions around you.
Mm.
Which my friend Ramsey's reading a book right now that I'm going to read, and I think we both should read, called Amplify Your Influence. And he's been posting a lot of quotes on there that are really good, that kind of go in this topic that we're talking about right now.
Um, Real quick, how do I see all my screens again?
Huh?
I lost you.
Mm.
Uh,
Oh, no, I can see you just fine.
yeah, I'm here. I can see you though. So no, there was a thing you showed me. It was like something something, and then you can see like all the screens pop down or something on your desktop.
Oh, yeah, I did like a screen share, but
No, the quick key that like shows all of my shit on my screen.
I don't think I did that.
Yeah, you told me.
I've forgotten since.
God damn it. Are you serious? Because
Yeah,
I don't know
totally.
where you are.
I'm right here.
I clicked on this thing and I don't even know who it is. But it was a text that I shouldn't even have been reading, and I just clicked on it, and then it just like moved you off somewhere.
Maybe tap
Tab.
W on your key or Command W. Maybe that's the wrong one. I don't know. Or minimize, maximize, Command M. Is
It
that
was
it?
one where it just showed all the like on my desktop. It dropped down and it showed all the different screens on the top. And you told me a quick key. It was like 2 seconds. Was no, nobody knows. You don't
I
know.
have no idea
Oh my god.
anymore.
No, it's not W. Tab. No.
Well,
Well, this could be the end here.
um, why you think we got to stop and restart again?
No, I just don't know where the fuck you went. Like, it's crazy. Not. Oh, hold on. I found her. Jesus fucking Christ.
Here I am.
The whole time. We've been in the
Did
whole
you
time.
miss me?
Yeah, sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
Hey, so
We'll cut that out.
going back to what I was talking about, so tying this back to Healy, there's an app called Mind, Body, Spirit. And the funny thing is, as all these topics have been coming up in my life with people, the idea of spirit, I ran the Resonance app, and the last 3 days, I've been getting spirit. I don't know if you could see that. Which is, it's how the Healy works. I don't ask questions anymore. And I think it's also a very interesting ground to, relate the idea that the energy that maybe you give off, your soul, your spirit, is a frequency. And these frequencies can be given to our body in order to enhance that spiritual feeling that you have in your body. Mind, body, spirit. So as I've been using these the last 3 days, it's an interesting app because it feels like it's more working on my thoughts, which is really weird. So I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to sound like a crazy person. But it, like we said, we're gonna be like honest about what's going on, and this is what's happening. I've been getting the Spirit the Spirit program for 3 days when I run Resonance, and maybe it's also just like trying to guide me so that I go back to feeding my spiritual self, and because it knows that I've been working a lot. I've been doing a lot of mind things, reading books, and doing a lot of body stuff, working out at gyms. So it's just a
That's not.
third element.
That surprised me. I think you told me that you have like a tough time, kind of getting into the spiritual side of things. Haven't you? Didn't you tell me that before?
Yeah, it is a challenge for me because I can be very just mind or body, like get into a routine. And then once I'm in that routine, it doesn't have to include me doing anything spiritual. I have to make time for it,
Yeah, which is interesting because I'm the same way. Like, and it's weird that because most people knowing you wouldn't think that. Like, you come off as a spiritual type of person, someone who like meditates or whatever, right? And I think I, to some people, also come off as that,
Mm.
but I have such a tough time pushing myself to meditate on a regular basis. Even
Yeah,
though,
me too.
like, literally every day I'll be like, I have to do it. I know I have to do it. It's going to do X, Y, and Z for me. And I've done the experiment over and over and over again. And I know that if I don't do it enough, that these things happen to me, and I just let them happen. And then I get to the point where I need to, and then I dump into meditating. I do it for like 3, 4 days straight, hardcore. And then I take a day off, and I take another day. And then, and then it's just this never ending thing that it's like a challenge to continuously stay on top of myself.
Well, I think the biggest elephant in the room with this topic and men is masculinity.
Hmm.
I almost feel like, if you admit that you meditate or do yoga as a man or do spiritual things as a man, there is like a connotation of you're not really a man.
Is it really?
I mean, I feel like what is a masculine man? Like we have to lift things, we have to be heavy, we have to be like manly, we have to like,
I feel like that all that's
know.
changing though, like the idea of what that
I
is,
agree.
like
I
the
agree that things are changing, but I also think
the
that it's still like, I don't know, it's still in the back of my mind. Like I got to work and I got to make the money and I got to like go do this and I got to, make sure that Melissa's okay and all of that and that we're safe and that just things that I don't know,
layer.
maybe are gender role norms that have been ingrained in my mind so long. So I kind of like avoid the things that I need the most, almost
Right.
just
Like,
because it's all in my own head.
yeah. But I mean, nobody that in your life would bat an eye if you were to meditate every day and you told them, right?
No,
Right.
nobody in my close vicinity, but
Nobody that actually matters, that you would actually care about their opinion, right? Like, um, yeah, no, I'm the same way too. Like, Ali even like tells me to go like meditate, and I'm like, well, I could do like a million different things and get things done, and I'll just meditate later before bed. I just always push it off. I think what I need to start doing is doing it in the morning, because I got used to doing it at nighttime before I went to bed, and it was nice. But then now I don't even finish the meditations, and like halfway through I start like falling asleep.
yeah,
So then, I should shut it off and I go to bed.
yeah.
So,
I try and do it first thing in the morning too, if I'm going to do it, because I'm awake, but still kind of like sleepy.
mm,
And I know that I have to get up, as opposed to when you do it before you go to bed, you're like, I know I'm already going to go to sleep.
right. And I don't even know if it's like benefiting me before I go to sleep, right? Because you should be meditating to kind of re-energize, to like get out there and
Yeah.
utilize all that.
I think if meditation is taken as an active practice, then there can be some real change that happens within your life if you're actively meditating as opposed to just kind of relaxing, which are two completely different things.
Yeah. I'll tell you what though, like if I'm meditating on a regular basis, shit just happens. Like all the stuff like that I want to work out, and like not work out, but like the things, the projects or whatever I'm working on that week, then I want them to work out a certain way or something like that. It just kind of flows and it happens. It is not like there's always problems, but they don't seem so hard. Um, but if I don't, it's like I'm addicted to the challenge of like fixing problems and fuck ups that they don't really need to happen if I was just meditating all the time. It's weird.
Yeah.
I need to stop. It's a weird addiction. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, damn. See, I was taking notes before about like what, because I don't want to interrupt you, and you say things, and then I jot them down. I forgot to jot this one down, but
No, I have a notes thing here too. I'm not where I'm just kind of writing about what we're talking about
oh well, yes.
so that we can put it in the notes for the video.
Yeah. There was something else I was gonna say though, but going back to the other. Oh no, what was I gonna say? The I do believe things are changing though. Like it's definitely shifting. You know, like the manly guy that our like fathers were, or even uncles, and like just even like maybe from 20 years ago, from when we were 20 years old. It's totally shifted in the past 20 years. Now it's like I don't know if I've just created maybe a world around me where the people, either the people that have known me for a long time, they're just like, oh, that's Joe. He's on some whatever other shit now. Like whether they care or they don't care. And then the other people that I've met recently, they're just like, oh yeah, Joe meditates. Joe, is a grateful, caring type of person or whatever. If I said that to some of my older friends, they actually might look at me like they'd be like, he is. That's probably because they don't really know me now at this point.
Right.
They think they do from the past, but you're constantly changing. But anyways, I think that's happening with a lot of people, like dramatic changes, and they're just like owning who they are now, and not caring what anybody thinks. And who cares if it's not masculine or whatever to meditate? I don't really give a shit. um and that's how I think everybody should be. I think you should be like that too. Don't worry about that shit, just do it.
Yeah, no, I just mean, I know it's the topic as a whole also gets into, like, I've had this topic with a lot of people about gender and how, there's a lot of stuff going on with trans coming to the forefront, and there's a lot of movies now with trans people in it. And like the idea that gender is a construct, like the things that we say um, a boy should or shouldn't do, a man should or shouldn't do, or a woman should or shouldn't do, or a girl should or shouldn't do. Like,
Mm.
if we go down that path, you and I could probably make, anybody, if anybody's listening, can make a long list of what we should expect to see from a girl, a woman, a boy, a man.
Right, and a lot of that stuff is just cultural, passed down through time, really.
Right, which
That's it.
you're exactly right. So like every culture around the world could have a long list of what they would say for each
Hmm.
gender role, which to me, it's becoming more and more fluid. And I feel like what's interesting in Western culture is there's such a stigma, and it tends to drop a lot of conversation. Um, but then you have people that are uber famous that nobody's ever batted an eye, like when they look at Prince or David Bowie, or I don't know, um, who are some women that are really manly. um, I don't know, but just like, it's cool if you're famous to be gender fluid, but for like somebody at the grocery store,
Mm.
it's not. And to me, I've never had an issue. Like, I've always thought, if you want to be whoever you want to be, just as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, then do
Right.
it. Like, if a guy wants to wear a dress or a girl wants to wear a suit, like, why should I give a shit?
The weird thing now is that before it was like almost like anti that, right? It was like churches. A lot of churches still today do this, but then they preach it like no gays or whatever. It's like against God's will or whatever. Governments and stuff like that. So, but the weird thing is now it's like reverse, and that's the part that I'm annoyed with. It's like I'm like you. It, do whatever you want, be whoever you want, however you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody. I don't care. You don't
Right.
even have to tell me. You can tell me. You don't have to tell me. You do whatever you want, right? Um, but now it's like that side, that other side is like forcing you. You have to call them they them, or you have to do this, or you have to see them as this, and you get what I'm saying. And it's like I guess they would call it that's this like woke culture or whatever now. And that's the part that I don't like. It's like, okay, be whatever you want to be, but don't tell me like I have to like be okay with X, Y, and Z or whatever. Like I'll be okay with it if I want to be okay with it. Personally, I am, but I don't need this to be bombarding me in like every movie and TV show and freaking at the grocery store and signs that say this or that or petitions and on the news and shit. I don't need like just let people do it however they're going to do it. If you want to be a transgender and go get all the work done or whatever, good for you. That's how you feel inside. Great. Do it. You can tell the world. That's what this is for. This is what we're doing, right? Start a podcast, tell the world about your whole procedures and how you're doing it. And the people who want to understand more will tune in. And the people that don't like it won't tune in, but they also like, that person that doesn't like it can't come over to you and punch you in the face because of what you're doing. That is illegal. They can have their own thoughts on what you're doing, and you as a transgender or whatever should allow that because we live in America, right?
Yeah, but I do get there are like some of those thoughts can turn into hate crimes for some of them,
And
which,
hate crime is
but
a weird one too. It's like
yeah,
every
it's
crime is a hate crime because you're not doing something horrible to somebody because you like them.
no, I mean like a real hate crime, like going out and killing them just because they're gay or killing them because they're trans, which people do. That's what I consider a hate crime. I mean, there's
Okay,
probably
but
all
there's
sorts of stuff I'm uneducated about in between, but
but here's the thing. There are laws against killing people, no matter what the fucking reason.
true,
So
true.
it's already on the books. It's already
Yeah,
there. So it
yeah,
doesn't matter. And you can go to court and it can come out of the reasons why, which it has happened hundreds of times in the past. There's all kinds of cases like that. Leave it alone. It's
yeah,
already taken care of.
yeah.
That's my opinion.
But it's interesting, like this is all like we're talking about masculine gender roles changing, female gender roles changing. A lot of females are working and guys are staying at home. I know lots of situations like that,
Mhm.
where it's normalized for gender roles to be changing, and that's okay. And then now we've got this fluidity between actual gender roles where, like, I just watched a movie. I can't remember. It was like me and Melissa, sometimes when we're really tired, we just like want to watch a stupid movie, like one that has no thinking,
Yeah, yeah.
just like where we can get a couple of laughs and then just if we fall asleep, it doesn't matter, that kind of thing.
Right.
And we watched it's with Rebel Wilson, and she like I don't want to ruin it for anybody that wants to watch it. It is kind of like a Dumb and Dumber movie, but she goes into a coma in high school and then goes into a coma for 20 years and then wakes back up and she still thinks she's in high school. So
Hmm.
they let her go back to high school. But there's like trans people at her high school, and there's they really like have 3 or 4 trans characters in there, which is like it's crazy to
Is that
think.
that you probably can't find one high school that has that many?
Well, I'm sure that there are. They're just not. They've never been comfortable to express themselves that way.
Oh,
You
maybe.
know.
Yeah.
So
So
I
yeah,
just
what you're talking about though is like what we said before. The reason why you can have that whole long list of like what a male's role is supposed to be or what a woman's role is supposed to be is because of hundreds of years of culture passed
yeah
down, passed down, passed down. So what the woke culture is attempting to do at this moment, in my opinion, is accelerate that time that it takes to change culture in such a short period of time that it feels pressured and it feels like forced upon us, and that's not natural. It takes time to culturally change, and like
true.
people like you and I can talk to other people. We can have podcasts. And if it's a good idea, it'll catch on. I
Yeah,
think it is a good idea for fluidness. I don't care if a woman is my boss or not. If they can do the job better than any other man, then they should be the one. But it's like when like Biden, I forget what position that I think she was a judge or something that he just elected her because she's black. That doesn't necessarily mean she's the best one. He's just like playing to this like trend or culture, this forced culture of like selecting the black woman. She might be the best one. I don't really know because I don't like pay attention to that shit. But the likelihood of her being the best one, I don't know, because it seems to coincide with this whole accelerated culture thing, and Biden is typically seems to be like one of those people that just jumps on board. Like today he's talking about like, we really need to have more gun control. We need to, because of the Texas thing that happened. I get it, but it's not about guns. What he should be up there saying is we need more clinicians in the world. We need more psychiatrists. We need to figure out ways that to get these kids at a young age to express themselves in a healthy way and talk about things and whatever. That's what he should be doing. Anyways, I went off on a tangent on that, but you get what I'm saying? It's a cultural
There's a
change.
lot of topics up in there.
It's a cultural change that
The world we live in, though, right now.
it takes a long time, and we're heading in the right direction. I can already see it, but the forcedness of it by these big corporations and media companies and movies and all that other stuff in the news is, I don't understand it. It's too much, I think, and it's not needed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the fact that it is too much. When I turn, like my life is already so busy that when I turn on the TV and I look at news and I try and figure out what is actually going on, like it would take me a week just to figure out like one or two things, and then already a million other things have happened.
Right,
So
right.
like to me, I really try and, at least what I'm trying to do is just focus on the things that I can control, which are in my immediate vicinity.
Yeah.
And going back to this topic of spirit, like if I were to sit and like just fill my brain up with all the shit that's on the news and really try and keep up with it, it's too much. It's already too much
It's
with
unnecessary too.
my busy life that I have,
Right.
like running a business and working and doing gigs and having a relationship where we want to schedule quality time with each other, and then
And
on
podcast.
top of it throw all this shit that's going on, and it's a lot.
What you didn't mention there though, and I get shit for this sometimes when I talk about it, is you didn't mention yourself. But you and I both know. I know that you're working on yourself. But that can sometimes, when I discuss this with other people, it can come off as like, initially they're like, "Oh, you're selfish." I'd be like, "No, if you don't take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever, and you don't understand yourself and where you're going and what you want to do in life and how you want to go about it, if you're not understanding that, then you're not helping anybody.
Right.
You're not contributing to cultural change. You're not doing anything because you have no idea who you are and where you're going, right? So,
If you can't help yourself or you can't love
yeah,
yourself, then how can you help or love somebody else?
right.
That's
So
there's
you, the
yeah.
individual, are number one. I'm talking before your kids even. Like that, most people would be like, "Oh, my kid is number. That's the first attention." Well, you know what? If you didn't take the time prior to having kids to understand yourself and who you are and what you want to be and how you want to parent and all these other things that go into it, you're not going to accomplish the raising a child to adulthood. You'll accomplish it, but not the way that you probably envision in your head, right? Um, and I think that that's how our parents did it, and our parents, they were like cavemen. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. But like, the more you can understand yourself, the more of an impact you can have on culture if you're patient, because it
Yeah.
takes time.
It takes time and it takes effort, right? You have to and then going back to the spirit thing, that is taking the time to find what practice works best for you. If you can set aside even just 10 to 20 minutes a day for yourself, whatever that is, whether it's journaling or, gratitude journaling or a meditation or maybe, you know, massaging yourself with a massage wand, or I don't know, whatever it is that you you need to do for you, like Melissa, she's so good at finding that time
Yeah.
and also acknowledging that she needs that time, and then also acknowledging it for me sometimes, because I'll just go like the Energizer Bunny and
Mhm.
forget that I'm like on autopilot sometimes. And like you said, you think I'm the spiritual person all the time, but a lot of times I am just in my head and not there, not present, not being able to be present for other people as well, and
Yeah.
the other quote, like, if your cup is empty, then you can't, fill someone else's up. So
Right. Right.
you have to take the time to fill your cup up, whatever that is. And Healy for me has been that. It kind of forces you to do that, right?
Right. That's like, yeah, that's
You
an
sit with it.
once again, it's another tool at times. So like because we're so busy, you can wear that in the car on your ride to wherever, and you could be doing some work. Also, I think you know, e- you can have moments and it doesn't need to be 10, 20 minutes. It could be 2 minutes or whatever. Like if you're in your car, just you can turn the music off and actually like understand what you are thinking about,
Silence.
you know?
Yes.
Like,
Silence is powerful.
yeah, yeah. I actually, we do this with our daughter, and we allow her to be bored sometimes, just and even when she wakes up. I mean, this is the first level of it, but then we have other times where it's okay to just be sitting around doing nothing, but like when she wakes up from naps and stuff, we let her sit in there for, you know, 10 minutes or so. And sometimes she's doesn't like it and sometimes she's totally okay with it and just sits there and talks to us, sings songs and does all of. But it's like those are the moments where you get to understand yourself, right? So we're
Mm,
starting her at a very early age to be okay with that.
that's really cool because, uh, yeah, I remember my mom used to tell me watching watching me think was like really cool. So she would do things like that, like just to see what I was thinking.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was a really cool thing for her to say, because I do feel like I did have, like, it mattered what I thought,
right.
whether or not it didn't, you know,
Like your
she
mom
let me feel
makes
that
you
way.
feel.
She let me feel like it mattered what I thought. It mattered what my thoughts were. She'd always ask me, like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Which then makes the kid talk and have a conversation that could be kind of adult sometimes.
And feel empowered even too, like to be a part of something, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
so there's so many layers to life. It's crazy. It's like it's as remember when we went to college, like I remember there were times then, and I'm sure I remember times for you that I remember you were like they were like the worst times in our lives, right? It's like fucking not making enough money. It was all usually about money at that time, right? Um,
We
and
both moved from a different state with a dream,
yeah, yeah.
and
And it's like not working out exactly as planned, and we're having to do all these other things to like make ends meet and shit. And it's like, that's what you're stressed out about and worried about. But then as time moves on, it's like at this point, from then till now, like I have probably 10 times more responsibilities and stresses and whatever, but like as time goes on you figure out different ways to manage those stresses, or you don't figure them out and you like,
right.
you have situations like I've had situations too, you're just overly stressed and um,
Passing out at the sauna because you're competing with the other guy in there trying to stay in longer.
well, that's this is what Aaliyah compared it to. Like, remember that there was a time when I did pass out before I had my daughter because I was like so overly stressed and I had like health things going on. It's always based on stress, though, that
Yeah.
have health issues. That's where the meditation comes in, and that's where everything like flows after I'm okay with that. But anyways, yeah, Holy is trying to like connect the two. I was like, if I didn't go in the sauna, I'd be perfectly fine. I chose to push myself, and then I passed out. Good news is my knee is better.
Well, I think one of the most um, like something that always comes to my mind when people say stress, and because I had so much time on the ship, when I was living on a ship, we didn't have really access to internet
Mm,
that was faster than dial up. I couldn't send pictures. I couldn't. So I read a lot, or I would, on port days when I had internet, I'd download a bunch of videos from, wherever, YouTube or Netflix or places that I wanted to get information. And then I'd watch it and read on the ship. And reading about stress and how when everybody is living in a stress body is what it's called, because stress is a chemical release of cortisol within your body. And when you are under stress and you are living in a stress body that is constantly producing cortisol, it's actually equivalent to 3 or 4 alcoholic drinks mentally. So I know that when I've been under stress, it is hard to think clearly. You're depleted. You're
mhm,
in a negative mindset because you're under stress. You can't think your way out of the stress at the moment, and
mm,
so everything just seems like it's getting worse. And
mm,
then it just snowballs into more bad shit and more bad shit, which gives you even more stress.
mhm.
And to get out of it, you really have to not be stressed, and that's really fucking hard to do.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you're right. As we get older, we get wiser and we have more stressors than ever now. But I would say you probably have more than me. But uh, we figure out different ways because we learned that other ways didn't work. And I think that speaks to the type of people we are too. Like, if something's not working for us, we think our way out of it,
mm,
or, try and get our, bearings in another way.
right. You figure something out, but yeah, you can't figure anything out if you're like got too much cortisol in your body and you're overly stressed and
Yeah.
like you're foggy headed and overwhelmed and it's crazy, you know?
Right.
Uh,
One thing that got me out of that was taking a supplement called CordRx, by ATP Science. And basically, it just has ashwagandha, turmeric, shizasandra, and rhodiola in it.
mm,
Those 4 herbs are adaptogenic herbs, meaning that they adapt to your body and they'll figure out how your body can best use the herbs.
mm,
Um, but those are mainly to rid the body of cortisol and to release the adrenaline glands. And they say that a lot of Western minds and bodies are running off of cortisol right now because of the stressors that we have that are completely unnatural to, like, living in the forest in harmony with a waterfall and going and hunting for the day,
mm,
Like, everything that we do is stressful for us, which our reptilian brain can't handle it, and we're constantly in like a fight or flight situation. Like, we're surviving, we're constantly trying to survive, we're like running from that tiger or
mm.
running from the bear, and we're gonna fucking make it. And the only way to do that is to release the cortisol into the body and to run on the cortisol. But it still doesn't give you, like, if you're running from a bear and someone says, hey, you should probably meditate,
Right,
like, where's the time for that? Because you're running from the bear,
right, right.
And that bear is just a metaphor for your entire daily,
Life, yeah.
9 to 5 routine that you have to do in order to survive.
Which I can see, like, realistically, I mean, yes, obviously, getting eaten by a bear is worse than, going bankrupt or something like that. But, you know, ultimately, it could lead to the same thing, where if you don't have enough money, you're not paying your bills, you go
A bear
bankrupt,
will eat you.
you can't feed your kids, you can't feed yourself, you end up homeless, you
Yeah,
could still die. And that's where people's minds go. They're
right.
like, everybody has like a certain bottom that they don't want to hit, and So I get it, and it's just it's the new bear, which is it's there's always going to be something, right? I guess if we and unless we totally change society and culture and stop worshiping money or whatever. But I mean, it's not even worship. It's like money is we use it as a means of exchange, and it makes
Well, there is. I
life.
feel like there is an excess of maybe not uh, money. It's materialism, right? Like
Hmm.
our obsession with having more and more and more, and that it's never enough, and that it's material things are mostly the thing that's trying to fill the hole or void in our life, which is probably the spiritual aspect of our life that we should be attending
Right.
to not focus on things to make us happy all the time.
Well,
You know?
that's where the grateful stuff kicks in, right? So if you have like whatever, you have a nice life, a nice house, whatever, and you're trying to like just get like a little bit more, it's like just sit back and be like be grateful for what you have. I mean, you're luckier than most of the world if you have a decent house and have a good job that makes like, 50 grand a year. That's more than like 90% of the population of the world. It's crazy.
It is
Most
crazy.
people make like, I guess around the world, I forget the number, but it's like Americans make far beyond like the normal middle class American makes like 10 times more than anybody else in the world.
And we're constantly trying to get more and more and more, and our waste is like through the roof. Like we
But
just
also
buy stuff
also
and throw it away all the time.
that's also a culture too that's been embedded the more and more, and that's kind of almost like a top down thing. I mean, our government is like that. Our the Federal Reserve, the people that create the money, they're all about that. That's the whole premise of like why they exist, you know, and then just the culture of corporations, like, and always push it. Like if you're ever in sales, you know that every year you have to make more than last year, and that's unsustainable. At some point, it's gonna have to stop at some point. So I don't know where I went on that one, but there are stresses in the world that are equivalent to getting eaten by a bear, but it's all a mental game. I mean, even back then, I guess getting eaten by a bear is like hmm, I don't know if you could be smarter than the bear, smarter than the average bear, right? You
Right, and
instead of
that's the
running like a
thing
crazy
now, right? Trying to outsmart the bear in your mind, that you're like, you acknowledge, be the observer, go, okay, normally I get stressed out in this moment. I'm going to choose to not be stressed out,
person.
take a step back, think about it a different way, and maybe I can work through this problem differently than just getting stressed.
Yeah. Once you realize that being stressed about anything, any situation, any problem that you have is not helping you. It's actually not. It's helping you less. It's actually diminishing your efforts towards resolving the problem. Once you realize that, then that's a moment right there. That's like a spiritual moment where you realize like, oh my god, I feel like shit. I'm stressed out. I'm like sick or whatever, and it's because of X, Y, and Z. Let me take a step back. How else can I look at this, and how else can I execute and pursue the future, and how to maneuver through this?
Right.
That's in that moment alone. That's a kind of a spiritual moment of realization. I think it's all about realization and like realizing or stopping yourself, like catching yourself in a moment. Um, that's change right there,
Right.
right?
I
The
agree.
moment you just realize that, oh my god, I always do this, and my wife's been telling me this forever, but I actually see it right now.
Right.
That's the moment of potential change. It's the beginning because you have to continuously see change and then start doing something different.
Right.
But yeah.
There's this book I read called, it was by the Dalai Lama, and it was called Negative Emotions. And it was all about taking that, that your thoughts don't own you. you own your thoughts.
Mm.
You are either in charge of your thoughts, or your thoughts are
Yeah.
out of control and controlling you.
And a lot of your thoughts, like, don't really even come from you. They just come from being out and about and seeing somebody doing something, and then you start thinking like, "Oh, maybe I could do that," or how does he do that?" or whatever. And it's just like just random shit, you know? So really you got to break it down and figure out what once you develop your foundation of what your thoughts are and your goals, then that's always just there. So you can have all this shit happen, and then once you kind of like have a moment, then you can back up to the foundation of what you've created, of what you know is real and what you really think about, and then rely on that all the time. And then you can build off of that. But most thoughts are just fucking craziness. That's what they tell you when like you're first starting to like meditate or wherever they say, you know, you see your thoughts, hear your thoughts, observe them like you said, and then let it go and then see
Yeah.
the next one.
Right.
It's gonna when you first start meditating, it could be so many that you don't even get through them all in the meditation, and then you got to catch up on the next one or whatever. But like that is meditation, realization of your thoughts and seeing what's going on. I feel
Yeah.
like it's
And
funny.
being trying to be in control of your thoughts.
Yeah,
Because I think one of the biggest things with, you know, in Western society, where we've got screens everywhere, we've got televisions,
you
we've got
can
iPhones, we've got iPads, we've got
inject it into
computers.
your life.
Yeah, and everyone is competing for your attention. They
Right.
they pay money in the sums of trillions of dollars so that they capture your attention, your eye on the screen, and they hold it. And they know that by doing certain things, they can hold your attention for a certain amount of time. And they got that thought right in there in your head.
Mm.
And once that thought's in your head, you know, that's what they're paying for. And so I don't I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying not to label it as a bad or a good thing, because it just is. It's where we're at as a society. And I do feel like things
Right.
are changing and we are recognizing and we are realizing all these things. And if we can take control of our thoughts and just say, you know, like now when I see an ad that I don't like, I call it offensive. Like I go, offensive,
That's
offensive.
offensive.
Because I don't want it. I'm like having like my news feed is great. It's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
friends, it's got bands, it's got musicians, it's got family. It's like I love my news feed. And I immediately know when there's something I that's not mine there. You
Mhm.
know, and it's like every fifth one, I'm like, offensive.
Yeah.
That's me taking control. That's what I do. It makes me feel better
Yeah, I mean, if
over
most
time.
people could see that they're being bombarded and injected with thoughts that are not theirs all day long, just like reading billboards or turning the news on or whatever, like they would realize that it's like it's not their own thoughts. It's there's other people with agendas and thoughts of how they want to um,
Control your thinking.
not even control your thinking. They want to manipulate or trend culture in the direction that's favorable to them. Now there's a battle going on there too, like
Sure.
Fox News and CNN, right? One wants to trend you one way, one wants to trend you other way, but they're both trying to manipulate you in some way, maybe not even known to them. They're just like they just get a bunch of people that think this way. They put them on this news network, and that's all they talk about is that way of thinking. You know,
Well, I
this
would
like
think that they know exactly what they're trying to
I mean maybe
influence, because people are paying a lot of money to get them to influence people.
right. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here. Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying
true.
not to be so conspiratorial, but
True.
who but I think most people involved in all this uh quote unquote manipulation via media and news and stuff are well meaning. Like I don't think that the main whoever the head anchor for CNN is like, oh, I'm gonna fucking make these people think this way. No,
Right.
Like that guy actually thinks like that, and he works for a company that thinks like that, and they think everything's fucking great.
Right.
But the
And
guy,
everybody needs a job
but the
at the
guy
end
at
of the
the
day.
top, the people that own them, they're the real puppet masters. They know what the fuck's going on. They know what's happening. They just have so much money that they're able to pay these people, and then they're changing culture. So that's what you're doing when you're tuning into the news. You're being manipulated, and you're choosing to because you feel like you like this side better than that side, even though you might agree with some of those things on that side and some of the things on this side, but more so this side. So you watch that channel. You're choosing to be manipulated in that direction, which may not be your own thoughts of how you want life and the future for your children to be. But
Right.
all you have to do is turn it off.
Yeah.
Then hang out with your kids and take 10 minutes a day with yourself and think about your thoughts. But that in itself is a dramatic thing for like probably 80% of the population. Like all you have to do is hang out with your family and love them and sit for 10 minutes a day by yourself. That's all you really have to do to really change culture.
For
And
some people, that is the definition of torture.
yeah,
Like, there's
because
so
they
many people that have vocalized that to me, that saying like, "Oh my God, I could never sit with silence. Like, I have to always have the TV playing, or I
that's
have to
people who turn
always have
the TV on
music
when they
playing,
first walk
or
in. Yeah.
be talking to somebody on the phone, or having the radio on in the car." Like, sitting in silence to a lot of people is torture. And
Mhm.
that to me is very interesting
That's a
because
rabbit hole.
it's just you. Why is it
Yeah, what do
that
you
that's torture, you
know?
know? And maybe that's a good place to start, if you're not happy
Well,
where
what
you
it does is they understand at some level that that is like a complete like mind melt because they know they're going to realize things about themselves and they don't want to. They want to be on this team. They want to be on this train, this ride that's on the winning side of whatever the fuck is going on in their life. And they everybody says they want a better future for their kids, but are you actually providing that, or are you wanting the government or the news or whoever to figure something out and provide that for you? No, I'm providing it for myself. I'm acting as if nobody's helping me, and at the end of the day it's just me and my wife and my kid, and I need to figure something out to make their life better in this world. I need to make the world, even if it's the smallest little impact. I want my daughter to say in like 40 years that, like, well, dad, at least he attempted. He attempted the best that he could to make a difference in this world. That's all I ask. That's all I'm trying to do right now. That's it. An attempt. My tiny little attempt.
Same.
But if everybody, all 7 billion of us, or however many people on earth, did their little tiny attempt at making life better in their little tiny world, then the world would actually be better.
Right.
And
We just turn the TVs off and just work with each other. Mic drop.
it really is as simple as that if you really break it down. But I know there's
Nothing is ever that simple, though, is it?
a lot of things going on in the world that we need to be paying attention to for some reason. Like this
Yeah.
is where I really get into it, and people talk shit, think I'm like this heartless person. But I mean, let's take a quick example of like this thing that happened in Texas, this shooting, right? Not good. Not good. Don't want that to happen. Um, I live in Rhode Island, and that's unfortunate. Rhode Island and Texas. I have my little world that I'm trying to make an impact on over here. While I'm doing that, millions of bad things are going to happen around the world. While I'm trying my hardest, putting every bit of energy and time into trying to make my impact on the world and make it a better place, I don't have time or energy to give elsewhere that is unproductive. That is offensive to a lot of people. But if everybody
Well,
felt like that, I mean, I'm not suggesting this for the people that actually happened to in Texas. Those people, that is their bubble. That is they're trying, like if something happened here while I was trying to like build my little bubble or world of impact, and something injected itself into my line of what I'm trying to accomplish, then I'm going to have to deal with that. Like I God forbid, I hope this never happens, but a shooting could happen at my daughter's school in 10 years from now. I don't know, but if it does, better bet I'm sitting here on this podcast talking to you. I'm doing everything I can, but I'm talking in a different way. I'm not saying give her to guns, because it was whoever that person is that goes into these situations. Every single gun shooting, mass shooting is not about guns at all, ever. Never, ever, ever. It's about mental uh, uh, chemical imbalances. It's all about how the child was raised. All kinds. It's got nothing to do with guns. It's about the perspective, the mental um, thoughts or whatever of that
well,
person.
there's two sides of the coin for that. There are definitely. I mean, a gun did kill the kid, so it is about guns. But I understand that there are very passionate people about guns in this country, and I understand that because I grew up with guns and hunting. And there are very passionate people about getting rid of all the guns in this country, which I get that because I've lived in Australia for the last 10 years, 8
Right.
years. So seeing how you can live without guns and still protect yourself and still have guns. People still have guns in Australia. You just have to get a permit, and you have to have a psych eval, and there are different things in place in order to have the gun. So I think that there are, in America, tends to be, what gets televised is the two polar opposites. And I do think that there's a happy medium. I do think, if you have guns and you need to have a gun, then what is a little bit of a psych eval and a little bit more stricter regulation to get the gun? Doesn't mean that you can't go get one, just means that it's a little harder for a 16-year-old to walk into Walmart and pick up a gun and then go shoot someone. So I just feel like there's got to be a happy medium somewhere, and by focusing on the polar opposites of these opinions, that it tends to never really get resolved. And I feel like that's where we're at as a country. We can't resolve anything because one side believes that there should be absolutely no regulation whatsoever and should never even revise that or look at it. And then the other side thinks that we shouldn't have any guns at all and just wipe them off the face of the earth. So, where is that happy medium
Well,
for
I have,
culture for everyone to be happy?
I have two things, right? First off, how did that work out for Australia during the pandemic? No guns.
What do you
Basically,
mean?
the government was able to tell everybody to stay right where they were at all times and do everything the government said, right? A lot of people didn't like that actually in Australia.
True
A lot of
story.
people wished that the government knew that every house had a gun so that they wouldn't be able to enforce that, right? So that's one extreme side of it, I guess, right? And then the other side, where you're saying that there's this group of people that only want guns and no regulations, that doesn't exist. That world doesn't exist. We are already in the compromise for those people, right? There
They don't
are
have to have
all
psych
kinds,
evals, though.
huh?
They don't have to have psych evals, and there
No,
isn't really an age.
I'm going to get to that point in a second, though. But there are all kinds of regulations on guns. You can admit that, right? There is background checks. There are all kinds of things that you can't just go to the store and just buy a gun right now. You used to, maybe like 20 years ago, but there's waiting periods. There's all kinds of shit, right? So we're already in that compromise in America. So that balancing point, in my mind, we're doing it right now. So there is no world that exists where you can have guns and people don't kill people. Doesn't exist. So
Right.
you're going to have these incidences here and there. If you really think about the big scheme of things, I mean, there's 350 million people in America, and unfortunately 16 of those 350 million people, or how many people, died yesterday, right, from a gun. Okay, and there's probably way more than that. Maybe yes, that same day, I can guarantee that wasn't the only those weren't the only people that got killed by guns yesterday. It was probably more like 100 people or maybe more across the whole country that died from guns yesterday. But nobody cares about them, right? They only wants to focus on this one. Anyways, getting back to the mental evaluation, I hear you.
And let me just preface this with saying that I have not even looked at this or anything. Like,
Okay.
I feel for the kids, and I think it's
I do too.
the families. It's awful and horrible. And I would, if I found out that that was one of my cousin's kids or your kid or something, I don't even know what I would. I don't even know if I could fathom that.
Right.
But I also don't know anything about gun regulation. I haven't done any research recently or lately. So
Like how can we actually have like a it's tough. Like I'm doing it right now with you, but if this was like a mainstream podcast or whatever, there would be all kinds of criticism of what I'm saying, because it's the like I care about those people just like I care about the probably 100 people that right at this very moment are dying somewhere in the world. It's happening right now. There's probably more than that, probably thousands. But because you are not aware of it, you don't care about them, right? That's the only reason. And the only reason we care more about these mass shootings or whatever is because the media is presenting it to us, just like the media presented the pandemic and corona to us, right? There's all kinds of other diseases that are killing thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people every year that nobody, and it's been happening. The flu, 60,000 a year, that nobody gave a shit about. Everybody knew it. Everybody, but when it happened to you, you dealt with it. You figured out, just like I was saying with like in 10 years, if something happened with my daughter's school or something, I'd have to deal with it, right? Um, Everybody has to deal with whatever it is in their life, but they're enforcing the world to deal with the 16 people that passed away, unfortunately, by a kid that had a gun and most likely had some mental issues. You know, that's the
well,
problem.
and to really speak on this topic, we probably should know how many people are dying a day, which cities,
I don't need to
which
know.
demographic,
I know
which,
that's a lot. I know that's a lot more than that. I know it's a lot.
yeah, I would
Don't you
agree.
think so? I mean, it
Yeah,
has
but I just mean to have an educated conversation about it, or
right,
one that people would take seriously. We would have to know
right.
truly all those statistics, because that's how deep this conversation goes
Yeah,
within this country.
right. But the last thing I'll say is back to the mental evaluation, which I totally get and it makes sense. The problem with that is government. So I had this conversation with Aaliyah this morning.
What are they going to do with that information after they have it?
No, not even
And,
that. Not even that.
um,
They may implement something that everybody's like, yes, finally, they're going to have you know psychiatric evaluations to get a gun, or whatever it is. They could implement some organization or some group that's dedicated to figuring all this out, right? Okay, great. And they're all people that we all trust to do the job right. They're well-known psychiatrists that are going to create the regulations or whatever. Great, right? That's great. Now, how is that going to look in 3 years from now? How's it going to look in 5 years from now? 10 years? New administrations, new people that have different thoughts on how it is. Who's mentally insane? Who has a mental issue? Who doesn't have a mental issue? What is PTSD? Can you recover from PTSD? If you can, does that mean you can get a gun? But before you couldn't get a gun? All these kinds of different things, right? That nobody can really figure out. It's an individual basis that it needs to be. So I mean, I would be all about it. There's so many layers, but it's we're at the compromise now with what we're doing, right? If we want to have guns in America, at the end of the day, like what they're trying to do is take the guns away. And my doorbell just rang, and I didn't even
That
know.
was mine.
Oh, I was like, I didn't even know I had a doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody there?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Just bear with me. I'll be right back.
Oh, buzzing. Okay. Okay, we're going to end this Spaces, Twitter Spaces live. I mean, I don't even know if it's what's happening there, but is Twitter Spaces and Twitter Live the same thing? Please let us know. I can't even end this. Oh, yes, end. Okay.
All right.
That was crazy. I thought it was my doorbell. I do got to get going here.
Yeah, so I do too.
But you get what I'm saying? So like,
but that's a tough topic, and I feel like it's so hard because I am between a rock and a hard place with my experience, like living in Australia with no guns, and there is something to be said for going to those countries and feeling so safe, like at night. Like you don't hear about killing, you don't hear about shooting. It does feel very community oriented. Like people are at parks, people are playing at night, through the night. Kids are still riding their bikes in the neighborhood, which is how I grew up, and you just don't see that anymore. Is that because of guns? I don't know. But there definitely feels like when you walk through a city in America, you're like, I could get shot. You're kind of always thinking in the back of your head, like, where's the safest? Where's the exit? These are things that you just kind of think in the back of your head that go through your mind. How can I get out of here if there is a shooting? Am I being exposed out in the street too long? Like, is this a dangerous alley? Because you could be shot from a distance too. So
like mentally, the awareness of that is actually the balance to the situation that you're talking about with guns or no guns. Because
but like
reality is it doesn't happen. I mean, you're still alive.
But what I'm saying is, yeah, true. What I'm saying is, though, mentally, like with all the stressors that we have in life, there wasn't that in Australia or New Zealand. Like you just never think that.
How much of those thoughts are actually coming from you, or are they coming from things that you've heard or seen on movies and TV in certain areas or whatever, where that could possibly be a possibility? Like, what if
it's definitely all coming from my thoughts, because those were thoughts that I had on my own. Like nobody told me. It was just like after a few years, I realized there was a different kind of relaxation that came over me, and that I came to that realization.
From living in Australia, that's where
or like because you're in major cities where there's lots of cars, lots of people. You're walking, you're crossing streets, you're going around to heavily populated areas.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, like every time we'd come back in our 3-month break, there would be a shooting. The biggest shooting in Dallas by the police. It was right in front of like a police station. Her cousin lived across the street, and he was like on the floor, and like just we had been there 3 days before, and then there was a shooting in a movie theater. Like when we came back, it's like every time there was a shooting going on, because it came into our awareness because we were in America and we had come back and we had been gone.
Because of the news too. I mean, like
true, but we had been in those locations too, like just prior or close to, or and it's like, fuck, man, that could have been us. We
Right.
could have been there. That could have been something like we were just there. Those kinds of things happened. And so being in those countries where it's not even a thought, to me, there's like a relaxation that happens when you're just walking and it's something you just don't have to think about. But I was raised with guns. My dad has tons of guns, and he taught me how to shoot shotguns. He taught me how to shoot pistols, go hunting and fish and do all those things. And I understood gun safety. He taught me gun safety. So I knew where the guns were. They were open freely. I could have gone and grabbed them as a kid as much as I wanted to.
Mhm.
But it was never a thought that ran through my mind because my dad taught me how to use the gun.
What
So
about
I get that side of the argument as well.
how about that? How about that? Like required gun safety if you have like kids or something, or even if you don't have kids, like some sort of gun safety program or something, or maybe even teaching about guns in schools, like how they work, what they do, make people more comfortable with it. Even though we live in this world, in this America, where there's like the most guns in the world, most people are like scared of guns. It's weird.
True.
You know what I'm
True.
saying? And why is
Yeah.
that? Because they're uneducated about them. They don't,
Yeah.
I'm saying you are confident with them and you never touched them because you were educated on them by your dad. So there's all kinds of things that can be done that are way more productive, I think, than banning guns. Because guess what? You ban guns, who's going to get the guns? The bad guys that don't give a fuck about laws in the first place.
Yeah, I do agree with you with the like you run a psych eval on people with guns, but really the problem is like our culture in general is mentally ill,
Yes.
and the system that we live in creates mentally ill people. And that to me is like you talk about the opioid epidemic and the addiction to prescription drugs that we're on now, and the amount of kids that are now on these drugs, ADHD, Adderall, Xanax given to teenage, it's like
what do you expect?
whoa.
This
Yeah.
should be expected almost,
Right.
unfortunately.
To me, that is the bigger topic. I think that's very poignant, and nobody's ever really brought it to me in that way. And obviously, like I said, I'm not super researched on gun laws as it is or what it takes to have a gun. I've just always known people with guns.
Right.
I
mean, listen, different states have different situations too, but anyways, for the most part, it's not that easy to get a gun. Especially in the cities that you would be scared to walk around in. New York, Chicago, LA. Those are the hardest places to get guns. And guess what? All the
They're still
criminals
there.
have guns. All the criminals have guns still, but all the people don't have guns to protect themselves because they can't get past the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, my utopian mind just says, I wish we could just come to like, people could just be happy and not have to have guns
Right.
to shoot each other with,
Never,
to feel like we need them, but
yeah. And that's a humongous like cultural mental shift. That's possible. But I think that would take a long time. But who knows?
or it could happen overnight. You just never know where we're going.
Just never know. If everybody just got a Healy and we all just focused in on ourselves, this could all just go away tomorrow.
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah.
that's all, folks.
Yeah. All right, buddy. It's great talking as usual. We should try to do this like at least once a week.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
been pretty good for the past couple of weeks, but we should keep it going.
Yeah, now that we got the technology working, I think that we can start really planning on things, talking about the Healy and doing you were going to do like a live demonstration.
That we definitely need to do. Yeah.
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 We'll find time for that.
Okay. All right, buddy.
All right, man.
Love you.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Thanks everyone who is watching or is watching the afterplay.
We have people pop in. Peeps.